What's going on, guys? Appreciate you guys dropping on today's video. Today, I'm going to be going over exactly what to avoid when doing product research on Amazon FBA. And as you guys may or may not know, I do something called online arbitrage. All I'm doing is buying big name brands like Nike, Puma, Adidas, MAC Cosmetics, Neutrogena, all these massive brands. I'm buying them low and selling them high on Amazon, obviously with different discounted codes, discounted gift cards, and all these different methods that you use to discount down your products. I'm just buying them low, discounting them down even more, and then reselling them for a higher price on Amazon. And when it comes to this business model, there's a lot of things you want to take into consideration, as well as a lot of things you want to avoid as well. And that's why, again, I'm going to show you guys exactly what to avoid when sourcing online so we can save and make more money. So with that being said, I'm going to stop yapping. Let's get right to it. So to kick it off, first and foremost, I definitely want to take into consideration the private label products, right? So when I'm sourcing products online, I want to make sure I'm not selling on listings where the brand is on that and they're obviously kicking third-party sellers off, because if the brand is selling on a listing and it's a private label listing, we're not only going to have a hard time probably selling on the listing, but we're most likely going to get kicked off, and that's also known as an IP complaint, which can harm our account health, right? We want to stay away from those kind of things. So I have beautiful Seller App opened up right here, and we can see the cool thing about Seller App is they already kind of show us that there is a private label warning. Now, obviously, this might be on a lot of products that you're sourcing. It's just there to kind of protect you and warn you. It's just some things that the software detects, but sometimes it's not always accurate. So how we really pinpoint and make sure that this is for sure a private label product that we definitely want to stay away from is obviously not only take into consideration what Seller App is showing us, but most importantly, scrolling down to Keepa, because this is really going to show us exactly, if the brand's on it, how many sellers are on the listing, etc. Right? So if I look down here on Keepa, like I was saying, I can already see the brand on it, right? Ella plus Mia. That's what the brand looks like they're called, right? Ella plus Mia. Yeah, that's the exact brand name. So that the brand is clearly selling on the listing themselves. And not only just that, there's one seller on it currently. Now, obviously, that's not the indicator right away, but if I go to the year chart or the all, it looks like there was two sellers at one point, but even then, you can see the offer count looks funky. It's like, it's not organic and it's not healthy oscillation within the offer count. It's definitely sharp drops, which is showing the brand's probably kicking third-party sellers off as soon as they hop on. Like right when they hop on, they're getting IP'd off the listing and they're gone. So it looks like the brand does a good job of kicking off third-party sellers. And obviously, as third-party sellers, we want to stay away from that because, we obviously don't want to get the IP complaint, which can harm our account. So in this case, this is a really good example of what to stay away from. Obviously, the brand is all over the buy box. They're clearly, literally hogging it completely. And you can see as soon as a third-party seller hops on, in the offer count down here, they're getting booted right off. Like, they're gone. So this part of the video doesn't really need to be too long. It's pretty straightforward, right? The brand's clearly all over the buy box. Offer count looks very weird, in terms of sharp, drops, which is clearly showing indication that they're kicking sellers right off of it. And not only just that, they're quite frankly the only seller on the listing at all times. So good example of what to stay away from. So we'll pass on that. So that's definitely a good example of something we want to stay away from. Private label brands definitely do not want third-party sellers on their listings, especially if you see that weird oscillation in the offer count, just kicking sellers right off of it. And clearly the buy box is 100% hogged by the brand themselves. So definitely want to stay away from that. But now on red flag number 2, I want to show you guys exactly what to stay away from in terms of competition rising in an offer count. And that's not necessarily bad, but it's definitely something to take into consideration when buying that product, because if offer count is rising, then price is probably going to drop, making it hard to be profitable on that product. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys an example of what that looks like. So make sure you pay very close attention. All right, so this is definitely another red flag we want to pay really close attention to, and that's competition rising in a product. So if I go down here to Keepa, we could see back here in May 28th. Now, obviously, that was a few months ago, but offer count was at 24 sellers, which is kind of high already as is. Depending on the product, but in a matter of a week or even 2, it went from 24. Yeah, literally barely over a week. It went from 24 all the way, or even 20, in a matter of about 3 or 4 weeks to 113 sellers. So clearly, this product was probably super easy to source for a lot of beginner sellers and a lot of sellers in general. So ideally, when a product is super easy to source and it's not that hard to find, you're gonna see those types of products skyrocket tremendously in the offer account. And that means there's gonna be a lot of competition on the product. And obviously, sellers are gonna fight and fight and fight to win that buy box because they don't know any better in terms of holding their prices for the long run. They just want to sell out quickly because they panic. Now, obviously, in cases like this, you're not always gonna be a perfect seller. You might run into buys where you didn't think the offer count would spike, but if it does like this, you have a couple options. Number one, you could either hold your price right at, like some of these guys, for example, you can see right here, some of these guys are holding their pricing all the way down, all the way back to $81, $87. So in this case, if you bought your product at a specific price that's only profitable at the stable range at 70, 60, the 70 range where it typically was at, and now it drops automatically to suddenly 50 range, then you could just hold your price at that 70 range, wait till these other sellers just sell out at that price, at that tank price that it went down to, and then you can begin to sell back at the price that you originally wanted to. Now, obviously, depending on each product, it might take either, not too long or sometimes, months to be able to get back to that market that it typically was at, depending on the product, of course, right? In this case, you definitely want to try to avoid, super spikes in offer counts like this, unless you have like some sort of strategy that you're going with. For example, I've bought in products. Now, this is like, I'm a high level seller, so I know how to do this. I would not recommend this for any new seller, but for any experienced sellers, I bought in products that I knew were gonna skyrocket. I could see the market in the past, right? Like some products you'll see waves in offer account spiking. So what I did was, obviously when the wave was coming up, obviously it was on sale, everybody was buying it, but the product was was selling so fast to the point where when it sold, when it was going down in offer count, so when sellers were selling out, that's when prices began to spike up, because obviously as supply goes down, demand goes up. So obviously I kept my prices already up as is. So when the market was going down in terms of sellers, my price was stuck up here. So I began to make sales at the market when it was obviously spiking up. But that's something I wouldn't really recommend for any beginner sellers. Also, I just realized I didn't get to fully explain some of the options you have as a seller if you get caught up in a product where the offer count spikes and you actually have inventory in that listing. So like I said in the video, number one is you could hold your price to when the market goes back to normal like it was before, after all the other sellers sell out at that low price, and you could sell back on the listing when it was higher at the typical market that you wanted to sell it at. That's the first option. The second option is obviously you can just sell it at a lower price than you expected to sell at and just make less profit so that you can just hurry up and get your cash flow back and reinvest into better products. You could do that. Or three, the thing that we sellers do not want to do and we tend to stay away from, but it happens as sellers. It's a business at the end of the day. It's not going to be perfect. You might just have to cut your losses, right? And obviously, I'm not going to say don't do that every single time. It all depends on the listing you're on and the product that you're selling. But those are the three options. Number one, wait till the market goes back to the typical price that it's at. Sell at a lower price than expected and just make barely anything or even break even just to get your money back. Or you just cut your losses so you can hurry up and get your money back, even if it's a little less, and just reinvest it into other products so you don't lose out on opportunity costs. Because opportunity cost as a seller is crucial. You don't want to have emotional attachments to certain products. I've seen this in a lot of sellers, and I've even dealt with this myself, is where a seller would get so emotionally tied to a product to the point where they don't want, they want to wait, even if it's 4 or 5 months, but in that 4 or 5 month range, you could have made, you could have tripled that money, you could have quadrupled that money, and instead you're just letting it sit in a listing where it's just getting older. It's not doing anything. So, one thing you want to, and this is kind of a little side note, is you don't want to get too attached to products. At the end of the day, just do what's best for your company. You might have to cut your losses, and cutting your losses is actually benefiting you in the long run, because it's going to help you, use that money that would just be sitting there and reinvesting that into better, profitable, more sustainable inventory. So just a little side note, keep that in the back of your head when you're obviously dealing with these kinds of issues. As a new seller, this is going to be hard to be profitable on as is, so you definitely want to be careful when it comes to sourcing products that have a spike in offer count, because obviously pricing is going to tank, right? For example, it was at that 70 range for a cool minute, very stable at that price, even like high 70s as well, all the way down to getting buy box at literally, what are we at, $48 at one point. So dropped a whole $25, $30 below the market, what it typically was at. So obviously in that case, it's going to be super hard to be profitable in something like this. So definitely want to avoid spikes in offer count, because it's just a race to the bottom at the end of the day. So be careful, be aware of products like this. Something I want to add on to that is when sourcing products, if it's super easy to just if the product is on sale and you don't have to do anything else to make it even better pricing, it's just, you're buying it on sale and you're just reselling it as is. Typically those kinds of products are going to have a lot of competition on them, because it was so easy to find. Like there really wasn't any, you didn't have to add like a discounted gift card from Top Cash Back or Card Cash. You could simply just buy it on sale and resell it. So those kind of products that are easy to find and they're already on sale, and it's as simple as just buying and selling like that easy, like with no additional coupons or discounted gift cards or coupon codes or anything like that. Typically those kind of products are at high risk in terms of being able to be sourced easily and bought, especially by beginner sellers that really don't know kind of what to do and don't really know the market like that. So definitely keep that into consideration when buying a product that's already super cheap and on sale. But obviously that's when sourcing skills come into place, such as leveraging discounted gift cards from Top Cashback or Card Cash or Card Depot. Any of those gift card aggregators that I just mentioned can be pretty helpful to protecting your margin and protecting you at the end of the day as a seller. So definitely want to take into consideration, how can I, maximize my margin even more on this product every time you're sourcing? Because every time you're sourcing, you always want to see how you can maximize your profits as much as humanly possible to protect yourselves from price tanking from products like that, or just simply making more money at the end of the day, right? So sourcing skills are really a big thing. And obviously, if you're new and watching this, like, it's gonna take time. It's not gonna happen overnight. But as you become more consistent, as you learn more and really get the feel for things, it'll begin to click more as you go and go. So to summarize that into a whole, I don't want to stick on this topic too much, but the harder it is to source a product, the more likely it's going to benefit you in your favor, because at the end of the day, it's hard to find. Not many sellers are going to be able to hop on that listing because they can't find it in the beginning. That's why it's really important to get really good at sourcing, so you can find these really isolated products that aren't super easy to find. So take that into consideration when sourcing products. But now on to our third red flag, I want to go over how to avoid IP complaints which are issued by the brand. All right, so how do we suspect exactly if there was an IP complaint issued at all throughout the history of this product? And it's very simple. All we're going to do is we're going to scroll down here to Keepa. And typically when it comes to sourcing your product, you're going to make most of your buying decisions off the 3 months. It's always good to look at the year, and it's always good to look at the all as well, so you can see if there's any issues in the past, or just to kind of see how the market has changed from then till now. Or in this case, maybe see if there's any IP complaints in the past, right? And ideally, the alerts on SellerAmp will kind of notify you sometimes. Like in this case, they're not kind of notifying you, which is something you can always reaffirm just by looking at Keepa, right? So you definitely want to make sure you always go back to Keepa. SellerAmp will kind of give you a quick summarization if they spot any, which looks like they don't, and that's because we can see there's a lot of sellers still making sales on this product right now, but that does not hide the fact that even recently, look right here, the sudden drop right here, look, it went from 89 sellers to 69, so it dropped 20 sellers in a matter of probably minutes, it looks like, right? So obviously that's not an organic drop. That's a really good indication of an IP complaint. Literally a matter of 20 days ago they issued an IP complaint. But even if I go to all, right, we can see right here, I'm gonna highlight this. Let's highlight it even more so I can kind of show you guys a bit. Oh yeah, right here, boom. So right here on November 19th, it went from a matter of 32 sellers, or 33 sellers I should say, all the way down to 4 sellers in a matter of minutes as well. So obviously that's not people just selling out that quickly, or else I wish that was the case. But in this case, oscillation like that, where it's just a stiff drop like that, that's a really good indication that it was an IP complaint issued by the brand. And an IP complaint, like I said, it's just for protection on their end, because they want to make sure that no sellers are selling any fakes or anything like that. So to avoid those kind of things, brands will typically kick off other third-party sellers. So in this case, right, it was at 33 sellers, boom, all the way down to 4. So ideally, I do want to avoid products that have IP issues in the past. Now, there are sellers that play it a little bit riskier, and they will still sell on listings that have IP issues in the past. Personally, I'm not going to advocate for that at all, because I don't want to put my account, and I wouldn't want you to put your account in jeopardy of being shut down or anything like that, because IP complaints can be hard to beat at times, especially in today's day, because Amazon is kind of cracking down a little bit more, being a little bit more stricter. So you definitely want to avoid those kind of things. I mean, personally, that's what I would do. Like I said, there are some sellers that play riskier just because of the fact that we can see, product is a very fast selling product. So, some sellers are going to look at them and be like, they're going to get googly eyes and be like, oh, I don't care about IP complaints. Super fast selling. I'm getting good margins. I'm going to sell it anyways. And that's where you can put your account at risk. So especially this product, right? If we look in the past, I mean, this, IP complaints have been issued multiple times, right? Not just that one time. I mean, we have another time right here. Boom, look at this. All the way from 39, boom, 24. So sudden drops like that, especially multiple times on a listing, good indication that it's going to be a reoccurring issue that keeps popping up in the future as well. So definitely want to avoid those kind of things, because it can be detrimental to your account. All right, so that was a great example of what to avoid when looking at the offer count and identifying IP complaints, because it is really, really crucial that you pay attention to those kind of things, because once again, those kind of things can be very detrimental to your account. And like I said, personally, I don't hop on listings where there's IP complaints in the past, because with the way Amazon is today, especially, you don't want to jeopardize your account at all over one product. Even if it looks like a gold mine, you don't want that shiny object syndrome. There's way better products out there that you can find that are healthy, that have no IP complaints, and that look really good. So don't get FOMO. All right, the fourth red flag to pay attention to when doing product research is paying attention to variation listings. The last thing you want to do is make a buy by simply looking at the BSR and thinking it's a hot selling product right away, when in reality, that product you're looking at could be the lowest selling variation on that listing, and that's something we definitely want to take into consideration. And hold up, before I even show my screen, I do want to say, if you guys are interested in learning one-on-one directly from myself on how to grow, start, or scale your business to that first 5- and 6-figure mark, feel free to book a call below. I'm going to drop the link in the description, or DM me on Instagram at ecomhish, and we could talk further from there. All right, so when it comes to sourcing products on Amazon, you want to pay very close attention, especially to variation listings. So, for example, we can see right here, there's a lot of different colorways, a lot of different sizes. We want to be very wary of that kind of stuff, because the last thing we want, like I said, is to buy our product because of the BSR. And a lot of sellers get fooled by this, and I'll explain why in a second. But it's to just look at the BSR and make your buying decision off that. So, kind of go back to what I was saying. A lot of sellers, especially in the beginning, we'll look at this BSR, right? And 3K is a BSR. BSR is the best seller rank. So obviously, I like to say, rule of thumb, anything below 100K in BSR is a pretty fast selling product. So 3K is really, really good, especially in the shoe and clothing category. So definitely a very fast selling listing to say the least, right? I don't want to say product, but very fast selling listing. But obviously, if we scroll down here to Keepa, we can see there's not a lot of oscillation at all in the offer account going whatsoever. So something like this where like we can see, right, in the past 3 months, there's been one seller that bumped up to 2 for like, and it's been like that for what, 2-3 months straight. We can see there's not much movement going on at all in the offer account. And, that's why I say a lot of sellers will just look at the BSR and automatically think it's a fast selling hitter right away, right? So definitely something we want to make sure we're paying attention to. And we can see if we go to variations, what color is this? This is a black size 11, black white. We could probably go to variations and see what the best selling variation is, right? So we can see right here. All right, so after scrolling down through all the variations, we see it's one of the slower selling variations, right? It only has 1 review, it looks like, not many ratings. So there's not much movement going on right here. And that's something we definitely want to take into consideration is that the BSR right here, it doesn't always account for that specific product. As a matter of fact, the BSR accounts for the entire listing. So don't make your buying decision just solely off of the BSR. That's the number one mistake a lot of sellers think is like, oh, the BSR is really good. It's got to be a fast selling product, right? Now, that means, it's probably a fast selling listing, but product is something we want to take a deeper dive into because at the end of the day, we don't want to make the mistake of buying products solely off the BSR and be stuck with products in our lap. So definitely a red flag a lot of sellers run into, especially in the beginning. So make sure you don't make your buying decisions off the BSR. You make it off of the offer account, right? Looking at that, and obviously go through the variations tabs in Keepa, right, to see what are the fast selling sizes, colorways, etc. All right, so that's the sales rate side of things. And last but not least, I want to dive into Amazon listings, right? So when Amazon is on a listing that you want to sell your product on, a lot of sellers in the beginning especially will run away from those kind of things because they think, oh, Amazon is on it. They get scared, they run away, and they potentially miss out on a pretty decent product that can actually sell pretty well where Amazon's not even getting the buy box and they're not really looking in depth into that product. So again, I'm going to share my screen, but I'm really going to show you guys a good example of Amazon being on the listing, but they're not getting much of the buy box at all, and third-party sellers are making a ton of the sales still. All right, so as I was saying, especially as a new seller, one thing you're definitely going to pay attention to, and even an experienced seller, is the best-selling rank, right? Because at the end of the day, the best-seller rank, aka BSR, right, is going to pretty much determine how fast a product is selling or a variation, right? And in this case, we can see the BSR is 995K. And rule of thumb, we really want to have a BSR 100K and below because obviously the closer we are to 1, the faster that product or listing is selling. And in this case, it's, not close to 1 at all. It's closer to 1 million, which means it's not really good at all, the listing specifically. And it's showing estimated sales 1 sale a month. Not really good at all. Keep a BSR drops, like it shows like really nothing there. There's no price changes. Like it's a good example of what to avoid. High BSRs shows really no velocity, and the last thing we want to do as a seller is have products just sitting in our closet not moving at all. And aside from the BSR, there's some cases where for example, let's say the BSR is currently 150K, but last week it was 80K, like things like that you can obviously rule out and potentially look at that as a winning product, and and it could be a pretty decent product at the end of the day. But something like this, it's a million BSR, and if we even go to like I said, the summary down here, we see there's no Keepa BSR drops, meaning there's no drops in BSR at all. There's 1. And ideally when there's no BSR drops, that means there's not much movement because every time there's a BSR drop, aka bestseller rank drop, meaning the bestseller rank is dropping in numbers, that's a good indication that sales are being made. So when I see there's not really any drops right here, and estimated sales 1 time a month, estimated time to sell is 9 weeks, so over 2 months, it's a good indication to stay away from that kind of product because it's probably not going to sell at the end of the day. And aside from just all that information, like I said, you can always refer down to Keepa down here. But sometimes there are good selling products that have a really bad BSR to them, and I'll explain why, right? Because sometimes what Amazon does is kind of funky, is they'll split up the listings and they'll make it to where they'll remove the size 8 color blue from that entire variation listing and separate it as its own listing. So sometimes when that happens, Amazon will vet that new listing that got separated from the variation listing from what it used to be on, and now that it's its own listing, it's categorized as not fast selling at all because it's one specific size, one specific color, one specific variation. So it's probably not going to get that much traction compared to the variation listing that it was on, where there was multiple sizes, multiple different colors listed on that variation. So sometimes you'll notice that the BSR could be like 700K, 500K, but the offer count shows really good oscillation and healthy oscillation. Well, in those kind of cases, you'll notice that the BSR, it'll be like a cliffhanger, right? It'll be like at one point it's at 50K, then it drops all the way to 700K just randomly, right? And that's not because it just went bad one day. That's most likely because Amazon separated that specific variation on that listing away from it and just detached it from the listing. And I can't tell you why Amazon randomly does that to some listings. It's just something that they do. But again, in the end of things, you definitely want to pay attention to the BSR. And like I said, it's always good to look at the offer count, see if there's any oscillation there at the end of the day, because the BSR could be bad, but the oscillation could be really damn good. And that's probably, like I said, once again, because of the simple fact that it got detached from the listing. But in this case, I mean, there's no detachment at all. This product has sucked for a while now. I mean, we can see in the past, it's always been at that 2 million, 3 million BSR. Like, this is just not a very, fast selling product at all, or even listing in general. Alright, so those are some of the red flags I want you guys to avoid and pay attention to when you're sourcing products online. And that includes variation listings, IP complaints, skyrocketing competition, etc., etc. Other than that, I appreciate if you guys watched all the way to the end once again. And if this video helped you guys out in any way, shape, or form, please drop a like, sub, comment, and even share it if you can, because at the end of the day, that tells me that I'm doing something right, so I can give you guys free game over and over and over again. And lastly, if you guys want to know how you can work directly with myself, have my direct cell phone number as well, and be in a motivated community with other 6 and 7 figure sellers too, check out one of the links in the description. It'll be a calendar link for you to book a one-on-one call with myself. We'll hop on that one-on-one call. I'll see exactly where you are in your situation, and I'll show you exactly how I can help you build, start, and scale this thing into a 6-figure operation. So, I appreciate you guys for joining once again if you aren't new, and if you are new, welcome. I'm going to keep dropping more game for you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.